So welcome everyone. We'll just do a little bit of housekeeping and scene setting before we get started. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we meet on and that we pay respects to elders past and present who have been entrepreneurs and innovators for many, many years. And my name's Rosie. I'm the membership coordinator for WASEC. And also on the call, we've got Olivia, who's our CEO. Who's to say, give a wave hello. And we've got Jackie, who's the lead of our incubator program that we've recently launched. We've also got Trixie, who's our research and advocacy coordinator. So we've got an hour and a half today, and the bulk of today's session will be discussion with our experts, and we'll give and then I'll introduce the experts next. And since we've got a few members of our learning community who've RSVP'd today or might be watching this later, we'll say hi to those people as well. And because it's a learning community, we'll just do a quick framing of why we're here. And then we'll jump into an activity to kind of wake up our thinking brains, but also just so the speakers on the call can get to know what social enterprises some of the people on the call are running. And so we can hear a bit more about our interests and our leadership styles. And at the end of this session, we'll have a Q&A. Feel free to pop any questions into the Zoom chat at any point that we can use for the Q&A. And you can also type into the chat if you're having any difficulty hearing us or having any difficulty with tech, or having anything with the Canva thing we'll do in a minute. So we've got a WASEC team who can assist you with that, with those sorts of things. Sometimes it comes up. So this event is part of WASEC's Learning Community series, which is about creating spaces where social entrepreneurs, especially those at the emerging stage, can learn together, share experiences, and build the skills needed to grow. And at WASEC, our mission is to build a thriving social enterprise sector in WA. We know that when social enterprises do succeed and when they grow, they not only create jobs, but they tackle some of the state's biggest challenges, and they do that using their own revenue. And that could be in mental health or sustainability or supporting people excluded from the workplace and many more impact areas. So this event is part of our learning community. It's one of the ways that WASEC is building that capacity in WA. It's supported through SEDI, the Social Enterprise Development Initiative, and that funding of SEDI is managed through Social Enterprise Australia and Impact Investing Australia. So this SEDI program is supporting the creation of learning communities, which are kind of like interest groups throughout Australia that come together to grow social enterprise skills and capacity. And they also create resources that we share back to the sector for some sort of like national learning. Alongside our recently launched incubator program that Jackie on the call was running, these learning communities give people at the earlier stages of development a chance to upskill, exchange ideas, gain practical insights from those who've been there before. So our learning communities that we're running here, our main focus is on micro social enterprises. So it's people at the earlier stages employing up to 4 people. And our hope is that this program will upskill people to get to the point of readiness to go to the next program or maybe the next step that they're looking for. And ultimately, this will grow the number of social enterprises in WA and it will strengthen our for-purpose economy. So welcome to those on the call who are members of the peer learning community. And if there are others interested in joining, you can get in touch over email to let us know that you'd like to join. All you need to do is to attend the remaining 4 sessions, which are running until April 2026. And all that information is on our website. So thank you. And just a quick reminder of logistics about this session. It's the session 2 of 6. And these sessions might be expert talks like today with sort of like learning from sector leaders, or they might be more interactive group activities where you're sharing your own wisdom, challenges, and ideas with other people in the cohort. So today is about peer learning. It's about learning from leaders who are creating micro enterprises with and for their communities. And we're thinking together about what works, what helps, and what's needed to build something sustainable and how we can learn from that in our own projects. So I'll introduce our panelists, a little quick bio about them. So we've got Stacie Mei, who she believes in the power of by community, for community, the founding director and QCEO of Queer and Diverse Pathways, which is a lived experience-led social enterprise supporting LGBTQI+SB and neurodivergent communities to form their own businesses supported by the community. She has a background spanning engineering, mental health, business and governance, and is now creating sustainable peer-led micro-enterprises that reinvest directly back into their communities. So welcome, Stacie Mei. Thank you so much for joining. Next is Shana Jarvis. Shana's the founder of Micro Enterprise People and Micro Enterprise Launchpad, which is supporting young people with disabilities to achieve their employment goals through micro social enterprises. She's drawing on her corporate background and after that has built a network using the customized employment model to grow commercial enterprises, supporting people with disability to choose the life that they choose. And not on the call just yet, but I think will be joining soon is Claire Wood. Claire is the Director of Enterprise Partnerships WA, and she's working with First Nations women in the Kimberley and across regional and remote Australia to use entrepreneurship as a pathway to healing, self-determination, and economic empowerment. So she uses trauma-informed and decolonizing approaches to strengthen culture, country, and language, building leadership and enterprise skills of women in remote areas. So thanks to Claire also for joining. We'll jump into a quick activity now. And I've added the link to this activity into our chat. It's on the very top of the chat. I'll just put it in again. So we've got a link to a Canva board that you can just open with that link I've put in there. The idea of this Canva board is to reflect on the communities and cohorts that you're impacting with your social enterprise and what unique strengths and leadership that you bring to the table. We're wanting to reflect on your leadership style and your kind of like unique strengths because it's a really important part of founders' journeys. So I'll give 2 minutes to also shout out if you have any difficulties with that link. I'll be here to help with that. But we'll do about 2 minutes of the activity and then I might ask some people in the group to share their answers if they feel comfortable with that. And feel free to jump on the microphone and ask any questions or talk about what you want to write down at any point as well. I should have put some hold music on for this section.
I can sing for you. So put
Oh,
everyone on.
I like it.
I can.
Oh, hi Claire, so you've joined the meeting. Sorry, I didn't see you earlier. Hello.
Hmm.
Do two or just do one?
One for each section would be grand if you get
Oh,
for it.
oh, thanks. Okay. Already done it wrong. Oh.
No, nobody's doing anything wrong.
It's
If you want to go for it, go for it.
the story of my life, jumping in and not following instructions.
Shana, since you've done such a great job finishing so quickly, would you like to describe your 2 cards you put down?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, the people that we work with are people with disability who are seeking meaningful employment. In the context of today, specifically, we're talking about the people we work with who have micro enterprises, where micro enterprises are best identified as the best employment pathway for them to reach meaningful employment. That's who we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And then my experience, or I guess strengths that I bring, I come from 23 years in a corporate background doing as an engineer as well. There's lots of engineers in this space, actually. I think of career changes. And then in negotiation and oil trading in different well for mainly around poverty alleviation. But I also, as part of that, was asked to support in an environmental space, helping develop a business planning toolkit for UNESCO World Heritage sites around the world, where we two of us developed a toolkit that's been rolled out for the last 20 years to build the capacity of UNESCO World Heritage site management. And I guess that's one very specific thing I've brought to this sector that I think is a little bit unique is that really rigorous business planning for people without business skills, and just with a huge amount of doubters out there thinking, how could that possibly be? Just seeing massive impacts and how crucial that is in the space that we work in.
Yeah.
And from this experience, I'm the mother of two wonderfully neurodiverse children, and I have the ADHD force is very strong in our home, and I am also ADHD, and we've become a little bit of a go-to place. It naturally has been a place that we have come with a lot of our people that we work with, ADHD and autism.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing. Maybe I might invite someone I haven't heard from before, which Cynthia Wong, would you fancy walking us through the oral answers you wrote on the board?
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Cynthia from Empower to Free, and what we do is we teach money management programs for everyone to be able to make confident and informed money decisions. So the people that we really want to create impact for are particularly women because of the gender pay gap issues, us taking career breaks, etc. So there's always a gender wealth gap. And I guess the experience and skills that I bring is my background is in accounting and finance. And if I kind of marry that with the ability to convert financial jargons to common layman speak, so it's less scary, that helps a lot of people to kind of go, I can also manage my money. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone want to jump in and describe their cards, or I can call someone out? I'm just wondering if anyone would like to share with the group and introduce themselves. All right, which means I'm going to call out Tim Strickland. Thanks for joining us today. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, no worries. I'm actually in between projects right now, looking at launching probably 2 or 3 different ideas. I've always got them back in my head, and I have a little bit of time. One of them that I've gotten some traction on is a registry for the arts and creative sector. So we can find people and link them up, and then connect them with a database for philanthropists and funders. Just some projects I've done in the past in the Kimberley. A big issue that they were having is they're always spending half their time on grants and then not getting the grants and that kind of work. So that's one of the initiatives I'm hoping to get launched in the next couple months. And then skills or experience. I spent a lot of time in South America working on social enterprise, supporting micro and small enterprises. So business development, I've got an MBA here and work a lot with the social impact community. So anybody who wants to find other people in the social impact community and network, I'm very happy. I've been able to build kind of a nice network of that. And so if you're looking to meet more people, I'm very happy to connect you with some.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks so much for joining today. It's great to have your micro enterprise perspective on our call as well. Thank you. I'd like to invite Anushka to share as well, because it's good to hear from more people on the call, and I would like to share your points.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Anushka. I launched a social enterprise almost 2 years ago in Perth. We are a meal gifting service, and we direct 100% of the profits from our meal gifts back into local emergency food relief. And we are really excited about creating a reliable income stream for our community program partners so that they can focus on what they do best instead of chasing grants and running sausage sizzles on weekends. So super excited to see where we can take that.
Amazing. Thank you, Anushka. Great. So thanks so much for joining this activity, guys. I think it looks beautiful on the board, and it's so nice to see all these reflections together and to learn more about your backgrounds, because there's always so much to learn from each person who joins. And I think that each person who is here is led by a strong sense of, firstly, skills and experience, but also a really strong sense of leadership and justice that you bring into your work. And that's a great thing for us to explore and to celebrate today, to celebrate our strength of our leadership and learn from others and talk more about that. So we'll start the Q&A session now. So we'll run this until about 3:10 p.m. So we've got a few questions to jump through, and if you have any additional questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll cover them during our Q&A session, which will start about 3 o'clock. So I've briefly introduced the speakers already, but they haven't had a chance to introduce themselves, and I think there's a lot more to tell. So Shana, you've already introduced a little bit about your social enterprise, describing your responses to the cards there. But if there's anything you haven't covered, we'd love you to please introduce yourself, explain what you do, and maybe explain the origins of your current social enterprise, how you came around to running it, and what it is. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'm here with sort of two hats. So I'm the founding director of a business called Microenterprise Launchpad, and we are a commercial business that supports people with disabilities to reach their employment goals, and that could be microenterprises or other more job carve-out roles. So it is a commercial business, but I truly believe has a great social impact, and it specialises in customised employment, which is a very specific way of supporting people with disability with their employment, very different to the traditional DES or ADE supports that's more common. And I'm also the chairperson and one of the original founders of the Microenterprise People. And we're a not-for-profit, which is a network of people and businesses like mine, are all specialist customised employment practitioners. And we came together and formed a not-for-profit so we could leverage our resources and our strengths and our experiences, and also be able to, as a not-for-profit, apply for things like access to Activate Perth spaces, so we have been around for a bit over a year. We have 3 shops in Perth that sell the products of the people, the micro enterprises of the people that we work with. So there's over 70 people with disability who own and operate their micro enterprises, and we sell their products in our 3 stores in Perth. We attend lots of markets, do a lot of outreach to schools, so special education schools, or helping people who aren't on the NDIS plans. We do a lot of work in that via this not-for-profit, which is 100% of a volunteer of our time. That's sort of the midnight to 2 a.m. job of managing that. But I think for me, I think it's a real key part of leadership in that micro enterprise, in the social enterprise space, which is we all have businesses and we're benefiting from the work that we do. So putting in quite a substantial chunk and finances. I mean, we funded the not-for-profit initially, and we give small grants to little micro enterprises who want to start, to get that little bit of $200 to get going and things like this. But we've done that as part of our commitment, I guess, and our values to what we believe in, both from a business perspective and putting that into a not-for-profit volunteer perspective, I guess is one way of looking at it. So yeah, 2 hats, but it's the same kinds of cohorts of people that we work with.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And we'll dive more into the questions of the model later, because each of you do have a very different type of model, which is why I wanted to invite you here to explore it today, because it's interesting to hear about the creativity and the different ways people are doing things to inspire us in how we could maybe do it. Stacie Mei, would you like to jump in next and introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself and the origins of your social enterprise?
Yeah. Hey folks, my name's Stacie Mei. My pronoun's Stacie here on here because I haven't updated it. I recently, 2 days ago, changed to Stacie Mei they she because I'm now a demigirl. If people don't know what it is, feel free to message and I'm happy to provide some knowledge. So I am the queer CEO of Queer and Diverse Pathways. The team tried to make me CEO, which I absolutely refused. So we agreed to put a Q in front of it so it didn't feel very corporate because that's not what we are. So essentially, we are an all-of-journey support organization that's completely peer-led. Everyone in the organization is either queer, neurodivergent, or significantly connected. So they have to be like supporting somebody. And basically, we built that because of like my journey, really. And I've been in the Mental Health Commission advocating for funding for community and just got tokenistic things. So I sold my house. I used that money, moved in with a friend who couldn't afford their mortgage with a housing crisis, and I built what we really call is maybe sort of a co-op model, and we can go into the details of that there, where we're each as professionals provide our services back to community. And they're not necessarily 100% of our services, but whatever we can contribute, and the revenue we make from that, a percentage of that goes back to community. To run this organization and all of the euphoria programs and other things that we are doing outside of our role with a not-for-profit we have set on the side. We partner and fund lots of stuff through them to kind of do that work and get funding. And then we operate as a business that is a social enterprise, and all of our profit goes back to community. And we just take the minimum as we can kind of thing to kind of help keep that business operational. And that also means we're registered, we're insured, we've got registrations and all that fantastic stuff that people who then come and work for us don't have to go get either, and they can just focus on delivering support. And we just ask them to point some of that support to the community so that they can thrive and get the supports they need, because they weren't there for me in my journey. And obviously, as a trans and gender diverse person, it's very close to my heart. Also being neurodivergent and having chronic illness. And I guess for me, I kind of just want to show my community that it's possible because I did it and I'm not special or unique. Maybe stubborn is probably my top trait. I just don't give up. That's part of my autism, maybe. But if I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's really the message we try to share. And just kind of work through how to get them the supports and the structures around them for them to be amazing, because everyone's amazing and deserves to be amazing and happy and have a thriving life. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. Thank you, Stacie Mei. It's lovely. And some really great messages there. I was just writing them down as little inspirational quotes for myself later. Claire Wood, would you like to say hello and introduce Enterprise Partnerships WA and tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be doing this type of work?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, the origin story is interesting. Well, I think it is, obviously, because I'm connected to it. But Enterprise Partnerships, we support First Nations women across the Kimberley get into enterprise, social enterprises, and explore different opportunities within enterprise. And most of the women we work with are motivated because they want to have better lives for their families and their communities. And yeah, it's been interesting just listening to the other speakers then. So my background is a mental health clinician, and the origin story is that I lived in the Kimberley for many, many years when there were much less resources for people, and resigned from government partly because of tokenism around youth suicide, in part, many other reasons. And at that time, a group of women were like, well, we really want to create hopeful pathways for our daughters. And part of that was either pathways to employment or creating employment because people live in very remote communities. And yeah, deserve to be amazing. That really stood out to me, what you just said, Stacie Mei. There's lots of amazing people, but without access, networks, partnerships, just don't get to have that amazingness, shared in their families or in the broader world. And so we've been operating we started out under an auspice, but now we've been operating for maybe 8 or 9 years. And I guess over that time, there's been a movement of First Nations women that are really seeing the autonomy that enterprise can give, the idea of being your own boss and being able to work to your own values. And that's what drives a lot of the women we work with, and probably drives us as an organisation as well, around what you can be in charge on, how you can disrupt power systems, how you can use enterprise in all sorts of sneaky ways to kind of dismantle structures that contribute to mental health concerns. And yeah, reflect on the origin story. Most of those women who approached us have now passed away, and they've passed away far too young. And I think that's all connected to, how whether it's good employment or whether it's enterprise can make a difference. Even, like how significant a difference the impact of a very micro enterprise can be on someone's life or someone's family life. So yeah, that was an interesting reflection just then. But yeah, nice to meet you all. I had a bowl for pasta for lunch and I feel like a nap. So just imagine I've got more energy than I'm currently presenting. I've got that kind of mid-afternoon slump. But yeah, nice to meet everyone on the call.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, I've also had a banh mi for lunch today, so I'm feeling you as well. But so yeah, to dive in more to your models, each of you have a very unique model. You're working with completely different cohorts, and you have a distinct way of supporting development of micro enterprises with these cohorts. And you do that in your own self-funded way through a mix of revenue, but primarily self-funded and independent from granting streams. So I'd like to dive in a little bit more to the model. It's already been described, but if you feel like you haven't covered anything, now's a chance to revisit that and really describe it for us. So we really want to understand the model that you're using to support the growth of social enterprises, describing how it works and who it supports, or what's unique about your model in your context. We'd like to hear what's unique about your model or approach to leadership in your context. So, and that activity we had, your personal experience, all the skills that you bring to your work. How do your unique skills and leadership really work in that model that you've designed to help with your cohorts? So I'll jump back to Shana.
Okay. So something that is specific to customized employment, and I think is quite unique to a lot of the ways other not only people with disability are supported, but lots of other micro enterprises, is that we work one-on-one with people. So we are every person we work with in their micro enterprise journey is completely different in how we support them, because it is customized and tailored to that very person. So that's the first thing. It's one-on-one. It might mean that someone has a couple of job mentor, we call them employment mentors or business assistants sometimes in the micro enterprise space, but they might have more than one business assistant supporting them, but it is still one-on-one. So for example, we have a couple of young men that have worked 3 days a week on their micro enterprises. They have a business mentor with them for all of those 3 days that they're working, and they get support from all parts of their business, from sourcing materials to production, support in selling and website management, accounting, the whole lot. But it's all done with the number one goal and value of capacity building. So we're constantly building the people we work with's capacity and independence, but that looks really different for everyone. So for some people we work with, that means that they're now getting support in every step of baking the cookies, which they sell commercially, to now just getting prompted occasionally when they lose their way, or for some people that's when they're having, as a result of their disability, their capacity can go up and down on certain days depending on what's happening with their disability. So it might mean that some days we have to do very little and we're working more on growth or new strategy opportunities, or we're having to really get in there and support them very directly because they're having a day where their challenges are more pronounced. And for other people, it might be that they just need support in accessing market channels, or they just need support with their business development and strategy piece, and they do everything else independently. Very, very customized what that looks like. One of the things that I have brought to this sort of area, and it's when I started in this sector about 6 years ago, and I was involved in a project under the NGIA to prove that customized employment can be viable, is I brought this concept of business planning for people with disability, but in a very specific way. I know these exist in different formats in the NGI space, But the way we do it is running 10 workshops, very intense with the people, only for an hour or so, but they are covering all the different parts of a business plan, where it is really working with the person with the disability to come up with that, and their supports. So they'll have different supports, whether it's formal or formal, informal or formal. So at the end of that, they come out with a business plan, but more importantly, they come out with a true understanding of what it's going to take to run their business, their micro enterprise, which they had no idea at the start. They think they do, and they think they know what they want to do, but it's only by doing this business planning process do they truly come out. And the document itself is, it's one thing. It's really the knowledge they come out. Now it's clear. And we run these workshops that are very customized to the people, but it's all achieving the same thing. Firstly, really clearly, what are the values? What's the mission and vision of the business? Because what does meaningful employment look like for the people? And again, it's different for everyone. For some, it's to be the best boss in the world, to be awesomely rich, which is one of the young men that we support who has a micro enterprise. For others, it's proving that people with disabilities have no barriers and boundaries, and to prove themselves in and what they're capable of, or show the world what they're capable of. For others, it's to make meaningful connections and be part of their communities, and which is quite challenging for some people with disabilities. And that forms everything else. That then drives through the entire business plan about what your goals and focuses are going to be, where the resources are going to go, and what things look, how they'll access markets or selling their items. One thing that is also even a little bit even more, I guess, specific to our business, and even to oppose to the rest of the network, is I was really shocked at how socially isolated people with disability are when I entered this sector. It shouldn't have shocked me. I mean, and when you're an adult, most of the ways you meet your friends and connections are through work. But it really was shocking and heartbreaking to me that most of the people we worked with, the only social connection they had with were with support workers, or the people when we were working with them. So we've created a collaborative workspace where basically all the people we work with come together, and we move tomorrow from that very informal space to a formal collaborative workspace, so that there's a lot of so we can do peer-to-peer sharing and coaching, and there's a huge amount of information now that's just shared between the micro enterprise owners themselves. And but mainly, we have a cake every week for someone's birthday. They get together and they talk and they chat and they make friendships and share resources and information about markets, but they're no longer working on these little micro enterprises by themselves at home, still socially isolated. So that's a real passion of mine. So it has been my home that has over 50 people a week coming with supports. Now it's going to be external, and that's a real benefit and a unique thing, I think, that we provide in this space.
Yeah, it's great news.
Probably too long, sorry.
No, it's great news that you've got a space to hold these events in, because last time I spoke, you described your home.
Well, not event, just all day. It's where we work all day. And yeah.
And I think it's similar for Stacie Mei's experiences when you were starting up this, because you built this yourself and working very closely with a cohort. Can you tell us more about the development of that and your model, and what's unique about yourself and what you're bringing to it?
I think, as I started to touch on earlier, like just trying to get support as a gender diverse, neurospicy kind of, autistic person that just constantly have to educate clinicians and get support. So part of what we've done really is bring together a team of people who are members of the community that have expertise, and use that to start an organisation where we support our own members of the community first and foremost, and give them access to supports, and then be able to help them navigate and find services and know where to get safety. Because we quite often, one of the stats, the really horrific stats I came across, was that 70% of my community don't reach out to crisis support before they have a fatal or non-fatal experience. And I'm one of those. And I'm lucky that it was a non-fatal experience for me. So now that I've reached that point in my journey and I've tried the advocacy and I did the systemic stuff, we decided that we wanted to build a place where, it's safe for me to work. Like I struggled for a number of years in the Mental Health Commission and in mental health units, trying to work and act as a peer worker, and struggled because of all the microaggressions and the psychosocial hazards that exist for me that aren't present for cisgender normative folks. The fact that I need those neurospicy breaks, or I get overwhelmed in the busy room, and all those things that they can't accommodate, even though they're supposed to. So this was part of how do we build a model or a situation where I don't want to build an empire so that people are just working for me and I'm building this big business, because that's not what this is about. It was about how can I help empower my community to thrive, have a safe place to start out, to get things sorted, a central place for support and guidance, and then go out and thrive. And if they work within queer and diverse pathways, amazing. They work outside of queer and diverse pathways, doubly amazing, right? Because it's getting more queer organizations out there. So we sort of operate a contractor model, which is very straightforward. No shiny whistles, it's normal. But we provide a lot more support, and I have Peninsula, my HR agency, on my case all the time, making sure that I'm not sham contracting, because that's not what we're trying to do, which is one of the biggest hurdles that we have, because we do provide EAP, we provide supports, we make training available, and we have to navigate this really technical place. And then we run a number of services. So we do peer support, so it's a peer-led organization. And that service allows us to kind of do that volunteer work, to do that paid professional peer work, and work in spaces doing peer-led and connect with lived experience leadership. We also then have an NDIS service where we get psychologists, social workers, therapists to point not all of their time if they can't, but some of their time towards the community. I just got a dry throat. I've been talking too much today and I'm not used to it. Yeah. So, and then some of them give a lower rate. So I've got a psychologist that doesn't work inside of QDP, but donates some of their time at bulk bill rate for our community members and our participants. We've got others that work for us, and they give us between 20 to 30% of their revenue goes into QDP, which pays for our NDIS registration, for all of our insurances, for the HR package that we have to support us, and all of those bells and whistles and those advertising things that we can do for them so they can focus on delivery. And that's been a truly phenomenal process. So it means that we're self-funding. And through that, we've then been able to put money and partnership with Nehemiah National into Pride in Swan, which then hosts all the volunteers. And I represent the volunteer coordinator for that organisation, which is independent, has its own board, has its own governance. And we basically provide funding into that so that it can do all of the things and get grants and do amazing work within the community, and provide for those that aren't quite ready to have a business or an employment, they can come and volunteer and get that experience in our safe spaces, in our community programs. We're running a Pride in Swan event for the Pride year, and we've got a lot of volunteers in there to come and be a part of that program and learn those skills. Because ultimately, if they come to me without a business, they're on a pathway to own their own business and be able to do the work that they love and have all of that lovely support around them. And obviously connect. So we do monthly meetings. 1 month it's a board game. Another month it'll be just at a local get-together, either a coffee place or a bar or somewhere that people want to go, depending on what it gets picked. We also run 2 safe spaces where people can come along and hang out and play card games, chat, connect, get peer support, or just sit in our sensory space just to chill. I've got a couple that sat there and just played their Switch together just for a couple of hours just to kind of be connected. And that's really what it's about. It's about building connections, about thriving and offering opportunity for our community. My leadership style is really around that community sovereignty rather than hierarchy. So there is really, although technically I own the business at the moment, over 3 years we'll migrate to a community-owned business with a board, and each member of the community will buy part into the business, and eventually it'll become community-owned, and I can dilute my share of the business, so to speak, to just one of the team. And all of my consultancy work and all the work I do in systems advocacy just goes through QDP in the same way that everyone else does, and I take nothing from it. It'd be nice to get paid a few times, but we'll get there. As an organisation, we're in our first sort of 8 months now. and we're achieving amazing things. We've got our first peer-led supported home, where we're interviewing housemates at the moment, which is the first of its kind in WA, where it'll be run by peers. There'll be no psychologists and all those wonderful people doing it. It'll be actually about supporting people to be able to come from 24/7 care to a lower level of care with peers, but can help mentor them how to have a shared house, how to maintain bills, how to budget, and get all of the supports with a private space they can bring their other supports in and have a bit of privacy, but also start to learn how to kind of connect and be in a shared home and all the skills that come in that. And then we can support them with that program over the 12 months to then come out into society and then run their own shared home and just be off thriving and have the opportunity to do micro enterprises and businesses and things that they want to do rather than just relying on those basic supports that they get at the moment. And I'm super excited to be on this journey. And what we've achieved in the last 6 to 8 months has just been phenomenal. And it's all from hearts and people just wanting to make life better for others, really building that sense of community. So that's us.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's amazing to listen to you describe all these various things that you're doing, not just your social enterprise, but the other services and the not-for-profits and how that all combines together for a really amazing peer-led model that really cuts through where there are gaps. And hearing you talk is exciting because it's so many opportunities for replication and for growth because you've got planting a lot of seeds, as many of us on the call are. Thank you. I think I might go to Claire Wood, who I feel like I've neglected for a moment in the call here. I'd love to hear more about how you work with your different projects, different communities. When you're developing out a program or a project in different areas in WA, how do you work with your communities to make sure that leaders have real influence over the design decisions and daily operations of the micro enterprises or the programs that they're building? Just wanting to hear about how you work with your cohort to make sure that the experiences and needs are reflected in what's happening.
Yeah, sure. Good question. So we have, I guess, part of our model is like First Nations mentoring. So we have women who are already successful in running their own businesses or their own smaller enterprises who go out to more, they might live in the regional towns in the Kimberley, so places like Broome or Kununurra, Horse Creek, Derby, and they would travel out to more remote places to mentor women and to expose women to the ideas of kind of what is possible. So kind of very much, I guess, a lived experience model. And within that, there's sort of a business mapping process, I guess, that happens where people would map the enterprise idea and see how that's going to fit in terms of people's cultural obligations, how it's going to fit on country, what the benefits are going to be beyond the group. And then generally speaking, the women that we work with might be sort of between 18 and like 45. And so quite often in the different places, then there'll be like a council of elders who really want to back what the women are doing and then also make sure it kind of has like the right cultural authority for people to go along with that business idea. And I think that's probably one of the complexities. If I was comparing it to, say, my obligations when I start a business, that the women who are starting their enterprises really need to make sure that it aligns with what the traditional owners of that place they're living in expect, what they're hoping for, how it's going to circulate back to be a benefit to the community. So that sort of mapping process is led by different First Nation mentors. Another way we do it, I guess this is around trying to like surrender the money, if you like, is that the women have created what they call like a sugar bag. And that's like a sweet pot of small amounts of money that they're in charge of. So people will have like a monthly sort of yarning meeting in a particular place. They'll have access to a small grant, anywhere between $250 and $500. And the group will kind of decide who's ready for that, whether they want to pool that grant money to do something as a collective, whether it wants to go to an individual, exercise. And then the other day we had a great camp and the women actually held their first sort of like peer-led pitch night, right? And they had a larger amount of money and it was super exciting. They had 3 different awards and it was the first time a really young woman had won. She was only 18 and starting like a cake business. and had a beautiful story about how her branding was connected to the stolen generations. And yeah, she got, you know, $1,000 to get all the equipment that she needed to kind of get started. So some of it is around making sure that, yeah, people, I guess someone kind of described it the other day as like facilitated self-determination. I think it was one of our board members, Corey Tutt. And I guess that's what we do. We try to facilitate it so people can then determine how and when and what that enterprise might look like. And part of that is access to infrastructure. You know, I was listening to Shana then and 50 people in a home, thinking that the kind of, you know, women might be operating something on their front lawn, you know, in the place where they live. And so we might try and help them have access to what we call kind of enterprise hubs. They tend to be like shipping containers where people can, you know, get onto Starlink, get onto the internet, you know, might have a fridge to store products if they're making something like bush medicine, have a place to kind of congregate and be communal in their endeavors to kind of thrive. And so in that sense, there's a role of us activating spaces or helping kind of unlock. You know, there's so much oppression in remote communities that people often don't have access to keys to get into places full of barbed wire fences. No one can get in anywhere. That's kind of what it looks like. And so part of what we do on more of an advocacy part is helping people access their own resources. Yeah. Did I deviate off the question?
I think that's exactly it. I think it's similar. It's interesting hearing everyone on the call describe completely different models and different cohorts, but it's a lot of opening doors and getting rid of barriers and enabling agency is a lot of the work that you're all doing in your work, helping develop micro enterprises. And they're all so different, but there are so much commonalities between all of us as well. So I'm bringing a connection between self-determination and customized employment, but I think it really is about opening doors and letting people step into strength. And I think there is a strong line here of the power and strength of micro social enterprises, and that's sort of why one of the themes of our session today. And I'd like to ask Shana to maybe describe a little bit more about why micro enterprises are such a powerful model for the cohort that you work with for young people with disabilities, and how micro enterprise maybe fills gaps that would exist otherwise if they didn't have the micro enterprise, and what does the support you offer with developing out micro enterprises differ from the other types of support that are out there for people, and how does it cut through?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is what when you mentioned like the strength based. So everything we do around customized employment is strength based and passion based. Yeah, so it's the first thing we start. The customized employment practice starts with something called discovery, and it's a really key part of the process where you go in and you discover and help the person. We're discovering about the person, but we're helping them discover what employment can look like for them, but it's with a really blue sky thinking and looking at what are your strengths, what are your passions, what are your likes, what are your wishes, what are your dreams, and we try to bring them into an employment context, but by first we're just looking in any context. A lot of people with disability often have never been asked, what do you like or what would you like to do for work? There's a terrible assumption in this country, which is some of the worst in the developed world, about the ability of people with disability to work. So a lot of the people, they've never been asked, and they've certainly usually never been given nearly the opportunities that people that don't have a disability have. So the first thing is we start to ask it, but then we start to do activities for them to get an idea of what it could. That often they've never done a lot of the things that they might uncover about themselves. But we're looking to this in the context of, firstly, it might be something superficial. For example, you know, a lot of the people we work with love animals, really love animals. They like to work with animals. But we go in deeper and deeper and deeper and get to know them more. But often when you talk to the people we work with, it's like, oh, they love animals, but they hate dogs that bark. They don't like picking up poo. They actually don't like the smell of a lot of animals. And then when you get down to it and really dig into it, it's often the only bit of responsibility they've had in their life is to look after an animal or walk an animal or feed an animal. So when you really understand what they like to do or what part of it that they enjoy, they like having responsibilities. They like giving a task that's just for them to do and they're not supported with all questions. So it's digging down different layers. And then but all of this is strength-based. So I think this is the first thing that a microenterprise offers. It enables someone to do something they love or that they're good at and really hone in on that. Certainly, it offers flexibility that people may need with their disability to work odd hours or clump together times they can work and other times they can't. So they get full autonomy of when they work and how they work, and that fills a gap that other options doesn't really do. It also enables them to focus on what meaningful employment means for them. So if meaningful employment means for them making lots of money or even earning a livable wage, they can really focus and hone in on that. If it's that's not what meaningful employment means to them, it means connecting with community or it means building new skills, then a microenterprise enables them to just put their resources into that. Whereas if you're working with someone else, that's a lot more difficult. But I think a microenterprise does exactly what any small business does or any owner-operated business does, is you're your own boss. And that's one of our key mottos is you be your own boss. You're the boss. So it's really about empowering to make all the decisions pretty much of what works for you. And that's truly customized. So that's why I do what I do and have my business. It's why I think a lot of people start their businesses. And I think it's really similar for people that have micro enterprises.
Yeah, that's true. You're all experiencing the same sort of growing pains and things we all need to learn as we develop them out. Oh, my screen's getting a bit funny here. Stacie Mei, I'd love to talk to you more about the kind of profit and impact balance and dance that we all play. So many social entrepreneurs, we start our journey with a strong focus on the impact or the people that we're helping, and that drives our initial involvement in this area. And then down the road, you really have to hone out and develop your income and your business. And sometimes along the journey there, people can forget their customer and they can forget what's bringing in the money, and it can get a bit of a stuck stage where like, I don't know how to grow from here. I'd love to hear about, I mean, your model is supporting the growth of lots of different businesses, and you have a lot of business skills and that you bring to the table there and a lot of knowledge. When you're developing out these businesses with people and advising them, how are you supporting them to keep that balance between making money and making an impact in their community? How do you walk this line?
And this is one of the biggest challenges, right? And it even affects me as sitting in the middle. But one of the things we talk a lot about, and I'll follow on a bit from what was just said about agency and ownership. And we talk about, we're not services that are done to people, we're spaces that create themselves. And it's about everything that we do has to have some level of sustainability within it so that it can thrive independently. So whenever I work on a new project or a new idea, it is treated as having no funding or no support. And it's like, how do we build a model in that space that works and operates within our model, contributes to the wider growth, but would not fall over if one of the other pillars fell over. And then when we articulate that to people within the system, we also then talk about, so how are you doing that internally? If you're not here tomorrow, what are the things that might fall over for you? Or what are the things that need to operate? And by providing like so we use a centralized booking software system that does all the calendar management and all those kind of things. We can try and show which of those tasks are you doing for love, and which of those tasks are you doing for admin. And if the admin is getting too high, then what are we doing around those processes? And we can offer guidance around what are those processes and how are we managing those and what's taking up your time and your energy. And we use some of the neurodivergent modeling around like spoon theory, for example, around, some activities cost 1 spoon. And you can do 100 of them, but other activities cost like 30 spoons. So you can only be able to do 3 of those today. And we often talk about things in a neurodivergent way to help people in our community kind of understand about maybe we can offload some of the tasks that cost us 30 spoons and focus on some of the ones that cost us only 2 or 3 spoons, and we love doing them, and how do we maintain, what does that look like? So there's lots of different theories that we work through. We use a lot of work from Neurospicy DBT, from Sonny Jane Wise on the east of Australia, bring in lots of other programs to kind of build spaces where people can talk about how they're feeling, their energy levels, what's draining, what's working, what's not working, and really create that safe space for discussion. And I've also did a similar thing for one-on-one with everybody as part of the organisation each week. We talk about those things, and it's driven by them. So I don't take notes from that meeting. They take the notes and they send the notes back to me, and we talk through, and I make any modifications and changes. So I know that they're driving the process constantly, and I encourage that in their mentorship with their team and their work, so they can build that model of kind of not doing for people, but doing with and supporting them. And if they could build that same mentality, we can really kind of keep growing and keep making sure that each part of what we do as an enterprise is sustainable for everybody, both in money, finances, but also in energy and spirit.
Yeah, that's the other one I wasn't bringing up there, but continuing through these hurdles as a leader can be a lot. And I think all of us on the call are doing a lot of extra work running your business, and that's always an important resource to recognize. It's not just the income you're bringing in, but it's the sustainability of your business is based on your strength and as a leader. And how many spoons is a really, really helpful a way to describe that. And definitely something that we focus a lot on developing out in our incubator that Jackie's leading. It's been a big focus of it to make sure that our leaders are able to sustain their businesses through the hurdles that will happen, as well as looking at your customer side, which is the bare bones of your business, but there's a lot more to it to grow as well. Thank you for sharing that. Claire, I'd love to ask you the next question about partnerships. All of us operate in an ecosystem where we are not alone, and we work closely with maybe the people who are buying from us, or our cohort that we're working with, and the partners that help fund us and support our work. And as Tim Strickland was describing earlier, the really strong network of people in WA who support social impact. So we're all embedded in these amazing partnerships. And for micro enterprises and for individuals starting off, these partnerships are really key to connect with. And I'd like to hear more. I mean, Claire, I'm sure you have so many partnerships that you could discuss today, but I'd love to hear about the kind of partnerships that have made the biggest difference for the people that you work with a kind of regional remote perspective, where it's a bit harder, even harder again than in urban areas to get things done. So can you describe some of the partnerships that you have that are really important for your work and how they benefited you?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we have, like you said, there's multiple layers and types of partners but obviously, money can create an energy as well, right? Where people don't have much and it's often needed to get started. And I think our experience of partners in understanding kind of what it takes to work regionally and remote is pretty broad. And so my favorite partner that has invested in people over time, if I think about it, are people that trust the communities that we work with, that are happy to surrender power to be led by the First Nations women around what's required for the next steps in their micro enterprise. And they're actually a group of radical nuns. They're like all over 80, and they, run a Mary Ward International Foundation. And, we had some queries because obviously the Catholic Church has done a lot of harm in places too, right, around language and culture and disruption, and two of the communities in which the women work with at both ex-Catholic missions. But look, these nuns, I think they're good at stirring up trouble around the world. And what has been fabulous about their partnership is that it's consistent and it's long-term and it's really invested, and they will reply directly to the need of what is presented by the women around what would help them get to the next step with their enterprise. A really great story of that was one of the First Nations mentors who's been mentoring women that run an op shop, and that helps keep a little bit of income coming in to make it sustainable. And she'd been mentoring them on upcycled fashion, and they'd been on a fashion textile, and then she had her own fashion label, and she's just gone to Darwin for Darwin Art Fair. And from Darwin Art Fair, she just got picked to be in Melbourne Fashion Week, right? It's all happened very quickly. But she didn't have the money to pay for all the stalls, all the things that she had to do. I think it was quite a high cost. Bianca's her name. Her label's Jewelry Girl. Look out for that. But she needed, I think it was about 10 grand to get from her isolated town to this exposure of this market of her place. And at her stall, she was also sharing some of the micro enterprises, cards and postcards and bush medicines that had been made of the group that she supports. And so they very quickly were able to respond to go and seek their donors and say, look, this is really prohibitive. It's going to cost her $2,000 just to get out of the state and get her stock there. You know, can you know, is there someone that would support her leadership, right, and what she's doing on country to help people have meaningful pathways? So yeah, I think, and then there's the other spectrum of partners that you don't want, and they're the kind of partners that want to control, right? And I think if you think about it, then I think we've got, you know, I think sometimes when you're operating, you might make partners out of a place of, you know, desperation when you're getting started or a lack of knowledge about a certain area. But I think as an organization, we've got much stronger about making sure our partners are value aligned. And, you know, that can be connected in lots of different ways. And I think every partnership we've had problems, whether it's been money related or energy related, has been when there's a, you know, you look at it, there's a clash of values. So sometimes we do get support from government job pathways money, which is kind of like community development programs for First Nations people who are on welfare. But there's always a kicker, you know? And so what we do is always kind of support the women to kind of analyze, like, okay, you're going to prepare to take this money, but this is the requirement of what you might have to give up for it. And do you want to go on that battle, or do you want something that just feels easy and smooth, or is this not the right time to say yes to that particular opportunity, whether it's equipment, resources, or the amount of energy a partnership might take? Yeah. So
thank you.
That's a bit about it. Yeah.
Well, I think I've been enjoying this Q&A session. I've got a few extra questions banked up, but I also really wanted to open it to the participants on this call. If you've got any questions that have been coming up to you during the session that you'd like to ask our members, please jump in now, or you can put your question into the chat. I wanted to ask a question about replication of these models. Part of the reason we brought the session today was to be inspired by the models that are being run, and for people on the call to think about, is there a way that I can replicate this in my work, or I can tap into these networks and learn from your experiences? But I think I see very strong opportunities for replication. Queer and diverse pathways, I think, is the one I'm thinking of here, where it's like, imagine if we had more community-led sort of solutions that really were embedded in the community and decided by the community. And I know it's really early stages and you're 8 months into your journey and this is a short time, but do you see opportunities for sharing your model and having it replicated elsewhere in Australia? And
100%. Like it's truly using a community-led model, right? So it's about, like, we all have skills, we all have professions, and you know, especially for like some of our minority communities, the disability, the neurodivergence, the queer, you know, people of color, you know, our cold communities, we know the solutions, right? We know what we need, but we're taught by society that we have to do things in a specific way to fit a Western nationalized white person model, right? Because that's the way it's structured. But what we're trying to prove at QDP is actually we don't, right? We don't need $800,000 mortgages. We don't need all these things that we're told we need. And, you know, and it's about how can we build a more community-focused model where we can go work and operate in that system. But what we do is also operate in our own system and build a place where we solve our community problems. We might not make the $1 million that we might want to make, right? Or, you know, we might do in those systems, but we can still do some of that. But at the same time, we support those of us who are really struggling to get on those first rungs. Because when we help the most vulnerable members of the community, we help everybody. Right?
That's the value of micro enterprise. Like it's a unique model because social enterprises as well, while we might not be the biggest companies in the world, although there are many really big companies, it's not just about the income you generate, it's about all the other impacts that are built into that it makes it so powerful. And us coming together today to talk about those values is really important for us to help establish the non-monetary value of the things that we're doing and the importance of that. And Yeah, so establishing our value and talking about it is really important in non-money terms.
I can talk about like the shared house example. So what we have at the moment is a lot of folks go into like recovery centers where they have 24/7 support. They reach a point where they no longer need that support, and then they immediately put out into community. What happens? This person's had 24/7 support for so long, right? And they get nothing, no support. So not eligible for any support anymore, and they're out on their own for the first time with nothing. Sometimes not even family members. So what we try to do with that house is go, let's have 8 hours of support a week for you in a shared environment, a safe environment where you can come and go, do your own thing, still a grown-up, still adult, make your own choices. But you've always got somebody popping in and out to just ask those questions to in a safe way, to build a business plan, to help you with getting a job or starting a business or whatever that journey looks like for you. And then after 12 months, when you're ready, you can run out into the big bad world with all those skills, all those experiences, all that knowledge in the way that you want, without just being thrown into the system that will chew you out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Stacie, I don't, sorry, Rosie, I don't know if it's okay. I mean, you guys are so inspiring, all three of you. It's been so wonderful, just like soaking up all the information you're sharing. But Stacie, I just wanted to ask you about the house. Is it because that's just such a cool innovation, like amazing. Is it bought, or are you co-renting it, or what's the? And also, it's a two-parter, because I was thinking the impact of this, are not actually all the work that the three of you do. It's amazing, but I was thinking you articulated what's often a challenge for us at WASEC to say, look, yes, this thing creates impact, but we find it hard to demonstrate that additional impact. But I think this model is a really good one to evaluate and show to government and, wider stakeholders how you're removing that burden, that on the health system potentially, as well as. So I wondered if you're sort of creating an evaluation of it at the same time. Sorry, that's two big questions, but
100%. So we're working with a housing provider. So this is a provider who provides homes through SIL, if you know NDIS quite well, SIL, SBAs, that kind of thing. So what we've offered this agency is that we would do a peer-led model approach, where we would help people go into like a transitional place, would be pure queer, and actually everyone's gender diverse, which is amazing. And they would get all the supports and structures to then be able to go out into the wider society and be comfortable and have all those skills and tools afterwards. And yes, what we're doing is we're doing all that kind of assessment stuff leading in. And then we run programs which will be designed by the people in the house. There are some legislative stuff that we have to have, and we work through that, but we try and give as much agency to the individual, depending on where they are at on their journey, of course. But having that support, and yes, we're doing some sort of review model process, and also after the 6 months, we'll have to present back to the Department of Communities and our provider to show the outcome. And with that, then hope to then use that to then campaign for more houses, because there are a number of empty properties, there are a number of opportunities where we can house people, but they're just not in a place of the right supports to get there. And what we're offering is that in-between space between high needs care to being fully functional in society, so to speak, in that way, by building those connections and those opportunities to kind of find the right, like your own community, right? Because we're all unique and we're all different, and we no longer fit in those boxes as a society. So it's about how do we find and allow people to have safety in finding those connections and finding that power, and building structure and safety and a way to earn income and a way to survive, because nothing's free nowadays, right? It's not like you can go live somewhere and you need a bigger and bigger income as minimum wage grows higher, things get more expensive. So it's about how do we build sustainable income streams for folk that don't rely on others, especially for our communities. We post some of the biggest discrimination and the most microaggressions, especially when you're autistic and neurodivergent and queer. It's hard. So that's what I'm really focused in on this community, to kind of give them power back and give them safety and help them have the tools to manage that as well, because a lot of people don't talk about the everydayness of the struggle. And we try and help support that and help build that personal medicine into their routine, which comes from Pat Deegan. I'm studying personal medicine coaching at the moment. We help build all that into our program so people can build not just the self-care, which happens as an instantaneous event. It's about how do we build a lifestyle around your needs so that you can be present when you need to be, and then disengage and do the things you need to manage your own well-being afterwards.
Thank you. I think it's such a beautiful takeaway from all three of you, because it's such a strong message it's really about how do you be a human being and how do you support other human beings through. And I mean, I know Shana and Claire, you both are the groups that you work with. It's all about that social cohesion, which has been evaporating. Rosie, did you say you can't see the chat or need help with the chat, or can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see a question from Cynthia, which would be lovely to ask the crew. So he says, looking back, what would you say is a key mindset that has anchored you and kept you going on your journey? And Claire, I invite you to start off with that one if you'd like to answer.
Yeah. What is it? Look, I think a sense of humor is required. I often joke that maybe we should just turn ourselves into a film company and the satire of absolutely everything bad that happens in First Nations communities perpetrated by others. And, one of our co-founders, actually, who Rosie knows, I think too, Mitch Torres, she is a filmmaker. And every time we have a hard day, I'm like, I've just got another skit in my head of like what we've just witnessed, to try and explain the barriers and the complexity. So that actually really helps me. I actually have like skits that go on in my head about the absurdity of the control over people's lives and then how to find ways through it. And then look, a lot of it really goes back to the origin story for me. So how I mentioned the people that originally had asked us to support them on this journey, two of those main women who were dear friends of mine have passed away. And I think whenever I think, oh my God, this is so hard, I could be doing easier things in life, or maybe we're not approaching it in the right way, or, what else do we need? I kind of, really think she was a very quiet, gentle, dignified leader. And I often just think about her, and the story above her is that her dad had witnessed a massacre, and he lived with that until he was like 87 years old. He shared his story. And that was within living memory until about 10 years ago, And so that's those two stories really helped me keep going, that this is the legacy of our country, and that there's a great generosity from the women I work with to continue to do that work together. But yeah, I would say that it's like in her memory, a lot of it would be because I really respected her leadership style. And I think when I'm struggling with leadership, I can tend to be a bit ranty sometimes, I really enjoy trying to like channel her a bit and have some grace within hard times. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Claire. That sounds, I can't even imagine. The comedy is a good way to deal with it, which it is a comedy. We live in a crazy world. Shana, what would you say anchors you and keeps you going?
Mine's probably not quite as profound as Claire's, but the one motto I live by and have always lived by is how hard can it be? And that can get me in very dangerous situations and very silly situations. But I truly do live by it. Just give everything a go. So starting the business, growing the business, starting not-for-profits, how hard can it be? And solve the problems as you go. And there will be issues that come up, but just deal with them as we can. And generally, it's done me pretty well. And the other one is really to be authentic and to truly not care about what other people think. And I think this is almost me. I think it's one of the definitions of being a psychopath is I've never really cared what anyone thought, and I've always just gone a path without really even thinking what anyone would think about it. But that also means it's very difficult to do politics and things like that. So in a global corporate where I was highlighted as going to have these really big global corporate leadership roles, I just could not be authentic. So it didn't matter who I was talking to, if it was the CEO of the largest oil trading company or the person who would bring around the coffees. Everyone, I'm just the same person. So, but what that's done where we work here is that everyone brings their authentic self, and all these people we work with, and we're told by their parents or by their supports, or they've got these challenges or this or that, and their mask, and they're going to see this, and you're going to struggle. It just dissolves at our collaborative workspace because there are zero expectations and none of the societal norms count. And I have to sometimes pull my team up. People don't have to say please, thank you, look you in the eye, sit down. These are false expectations by society that do not work for everyone. So who cares what anyone else thinks? They're not hurting anyone. That's all that matters. And if people can be truly authentic, I think so many barriers and struggles that they face really dissolve. And that enables me to keep going all the time.
It's been coming up a lot in the conversation today, authenticity and agency as a real strength of the micro enterprises that you're supporting. And that's I think the key thing that they're unlocking. They're leading through agency and authenticity. Yep. And that's what you're kind of enabling in all of your work. You're enabling people to be them and you're opening those doors. Jackie, you've got a question about the co-op model. And I think that, firstly, I think governance would be a huge conversation we could go into about the legal structures. And I don't think me and Stacie may have had a pretty prolonged conversation about career and diverse pathways at some point, because I was like, can you explain to me all the different governance stuff that's going on there, which was a lot. But most of you, Enterprise Partnerships WA Claire, is it a not-for-profit model, or
we're a registered charity and a company.
Yeah. And we're interested in the co-op models, which is something that Career and Diverse Pathways is considering developing out. Some of the things we're describing today sound pretty similar to a co-op model. We're talking about community-run and led organisations, and that's something you're considering doing, Stacie, with yours. And so what's the question here? We're wondering about how the co-op model works, and why you want to move to a co-op model in the future. Do you have any comments on the co-op model and its opportunities in your space?
Is that to me?
Oh, sorry, Stacie.
Yeah. You're looking at me, but I don't know if it's me, right? I think that's me, but I just check. So essentially at the moment, obviously, I'm the sole director, right? Which is for that command control kind of piece that I have to do for the different components and the legal entity. However, what the plan is over the by 2028, we'll have a board, and all of the people that operate within QDP will basically buy ownership of it, right? So they'll become shareholders of the entity that they're working for. And there's implications of that, and I won't go into everything. There's a lot of work involved in building that and putting good governance in place and having a constitution and everything that reflects the value, with the idea that by 2031, no one organisation that's part of this, because there'll be organisations that own QDP, will own more than 10%. They'll be part of our legislation, and they must be a member of the community or led by a member of the community. And then that way we are a series of organisations operating QDP cooperatively for the purpose of community. And that's what we mean by a co-op model. And I think IGA operates in a very similar way, where they operate a co-op model in terms of doing that. And by doing that, you truly keep that kind of by community for community approach. And then we haven't figured out all the nitty-gritties of the legalities of everything yet. That's going to be a good 3-year journey to get there. But I hope that I'll be less than 50% by year 3. And then be down to 10% by that 2031 mark. And if that happens, I'll know I've left behind a legacy for the future for my community. And so that's the vision, that's the dream. And we're still working through it.
Yeah, and we hope to hear about how that journey is for you. It sounds really interesting. I'm sure lots of people on the call are thinking about what your next steps will be, starting maybe as a sole trader and thinking about what journey you want to go into next, and all the possibilities that it opens up by things like co-op models. Does anyone have any final questions that they want to bring to our panel members before we wrap up with final statements? Any burning questions? if there is, feel free to put your hand up or make any noises. We just wanted to end with a piece of final advice for the people on the call today. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to the people attending today who are supporting micro enterprises or starting up their own micro enterprise in their community? Shana, would you like to start? What's one piece of advice you'd like to hand over?
So I just got prompted then by the structure thing you said about the sole trader. So this is a really boring. I've just gone from a sole trader to a company, a PTY limited company, and I just can't believe I went sole trader in the first place. It was just a complete waste of time and space, and I thought it would be too hard to go to a company. Absolutely not. Basically exactly the same amount of resources and energy, and skipped, and now I had to transition all this stuff from one to the other, which would have been just avoided if I had gone straight to a company. Now, with my background, I should have known this, and I give advice on this, but people make it sound really scary, a company. No, it's just as simple as a sole trader. It gets rid of your liability, which is really the main issue, which I, again, understood, but probably hadn't appreciated enough. And everything else is virtually the same. So one piece of advice is just skip the sole trader and go straight to a company. I'm glad Stacie's not in, because I thought that might be a bit controversial, but yeah, it's no harder at all.
Thank you. That's really good advice.
Tiny little bit more money in terms of a registration, but only a little. We're talking a few $100s more, that's all.
Pro tip. Thank you, Shana.
And I definitely say that's the biggest bit of advice I give to my team is that just go
so pleased I got one right, Stacie, compared to you.
Go straight for a company and get it. You do need, there's audit requirements, there are tax implications.
Not even if you're a sole trader, though, really, one director. Not even so.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. You don't have to be an employee, so you can miss out on that when you're first starting out, and only then look at your structure. And that's part of the mentoring that we can give to our teams that start their gardening business or whatever it is that they want to do.
Good advice.
Yeah, so great work.
Claire, would you have a piece of advice to share back to the group?
I guess communities like how we're collected today is really nourishing, and probably something that we weren't a part of to get started with. And I think, one, it's inspiring to learn, and two, I think, there is always the risk of burnout when there's like a hard social issue you're responding to and you're passionate about something. Like, I know for me, it's hard to moderate passion and say no. And so, I think that solidarity in, people trying to do good through business can be really helpful. So, I would say coming to things like this, sometimes they can drop off because you want to do the business thing or do the operational thing, that you can neglect kind of being connected to a community or discovering a different community. And I always find that super enriching. So,
yeah. Thank you for saying that. And it does lead me back to what I was going to say at the end. But to the people who are joining the call and to the people who are speaking, thank you for your time as well. But it is a lot of burden, and taking time out of your day now to come to a learning community session that we really think will be helpful to solidify both your skills and learning and also your connections and understandings in this stage. But it's a big chunk of your time, but we really do think these learning communities can be a really important step to support our community and support people from not feeling alone and confused, and hearing from other people's journeys is really great. And Stacie Mei, would you like to finish off with you can say it out loud if you'd like. I can see if we can.
I was just reflecting on that key point of this, one of the biggest areas of challenge for us supporting our community. And I've had a couple of scenarios already, but what I'd like to say to my team is we're holding space for people, not power, right? We don't, we walk with people and not for them, so that when it does get tough, whenever we're taking power, that's when we start putting our hands into the pie. We start doing for, because we're taking ownership of their journey and not letting them fail or get burnt. Or what we need to do is just hold the space and then support them, give them knowledge, give them tools, help find other avenues for redirection, rather than going, oh no, they're going to fail or they're going to be homeless and I need to fix it. We don't need to fix. We just need to support and help walk with people. And that's really the peer-led model. So hold space, not power.
Thank you. And what a great message to end with. We've just got so many great zingers from today, so I'm looking forward to doing a great write-up from this session, and I'll be sharing a kind of write-up or resource from some of our learnings today back to our learning community and putting it on our website so other members can read about it as well. And I think I'll leave it there. I think some of the things to follow up is to say, if you want to send this recording to anybody afterwards, we'll be uploading it, as I said, and we'll have the resources online. And for anyone on the call who isn't part of our learning community and is interested, get in touch and we can welcome you to that learning community. And apart from that, thank you so much for being here today. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a really wonderful, wonderful reflective session. And thank you. I feel blessed to have been here, and thank you for sharing all the things that you have shared and taking your time to be with us today. That's all, folks. I'll say
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
thanks, Cynthia. It's just us now.